today for this session. It's a fairly exciting part in terms of what we thought we could kind of give you a preview exclusively before we really kind of hit the media and the market overall. It's something which is fairly revolutionary in terms of what we have kind of taken more from a point of view of looking at touching the country overall as a process in terms of going forward. So first of all, what I wanted to give you a glimpse is that when you look at the okay, so when you look at the overall perspective in terms of from where we are coming in, we are looking at, as I said, connecting with the rural India in a very strong manner and looking at an approach which is far mass in terms of looking at touching every home in India in a very strong way. This is consonant with the fact that today the way we are looking at progression in India, what's happening, the way today we are seeing disposable incomes happening all across, the way the aggregating economy is kind of increasing. We think it's a fairly prime moment in terms of really establishing the fact that we want to bring joy and happiness to every home, and as they kind of really look at upgrading to something which is really smart as we kind of look at. So just to cover the context, if you look at last 10 years, the penetration and the connectivity to all the rural cities have increased quite a bit, and today when we see the network of highways, the network of roads, the whole internet connectivity in terms of what we see, this is something which is a fairly progressive change in terms of what's happening. Overall, the way India is growing, brand India is becoming really very vibrant. We had the G20 which happened, and now the kind of investments which we are flowing into India, we are looking at becoming the third largest economy by 2027. So I think that's a very big leap in terms of what is there. We are already the fifth largest economy today to that extent. With various kind of government schemes coming for the housing exploration. I think today the number of pakka houses across the country is kind of going up, especially when we look at population of town which are at about less than 25,000 and even lower at about 5 to 10,000 population to that extent. I think the overall ingress of pakka housing is something which is going on very strongly. Our consumption as a country kind of really believes anything else because of the increasing population. We are number one now, 1.4 billion, leaving China behind to that extent, and that kind of really is going to be fueling the full economy and the whole home segment in a very strong way as we see it. Overall, as I said, the disposable incomes, the aggregate incomes are going up, which gives a chance to people to kind of really spend monies at home, which is possibly where the emotional quotient is very high. So whatever be the home, the whole area of Har Ghar, which is the emotions around the home, are very big, and that is something which we see universally at whatever segmentation you see. The attachment with the home is still very big in terms of what we see. And given the fact that you are a consumption economy, we are looking at very strong GDP growths which are going to happen. And this is something which we feel is going to continue for a while, and that is something which is the big opportunity at hand in terms of what we see. Some data points overall, when we look at the overall category, we are looking at now really talking of the bottom of the pyramid. If you see, there are the categories divided into the economy, the premium and the luxury. But where we are coming from is to take the bottom of the pyramid, which is largely dominated by something which we call as a distemper, okay, which is a fairly cheap coating in terms of overall which comes, and there are certain other lower end coatings which come from in the unorganized sector to that extent. That's the pie in terms of what we are aiming in terms of really taking in a very big way to that extent. What we have seen is that a smaller town with a population which is between 1 to 5 lakhs is something which is growing at a far more incremental rate as we see possibly the other towns to that extent, which kind of gives us the idea of the potential in terms of what's really happening to that extent, which is there. The overall contribution which comes from the smaller towns which are in this category is possibly higher for distemper and the other low coats almost by about 3 points higher than the average in terms of what comes in. And therefore, what we are seeing is that overall a proliferation of the smart brands. Okay, people are buying into brands as a sign of trust, and that's a movement which we are finding across FMCG segments and so on and so forth, where the branded share is kind of increasing from the unorganized kind of a share to that extent. So that's another big piece of information which is kind of springing